Circle Time Magazine is a professional development talk show for early childhood educators. This show gives real-world examples of teaching and learning in a variety of early childhood education settings. Ideas for using appropriate and accessible materials. Every episode has tips and methods for you to try out too.
Hi, and welcome to Circle Time Magazine. I'm Dawn Williams.
And I'm Kristen Ainsley, and we are so happy you're here with us today for a Circle Time of our own.
This season is all about supporting children with disabilities. The way we do that is through inclusion. Inclusion is an approach to teaching. It's a way that ensures that children with disabilities can access, participate, learn, and thrive in their learning environments.
Right. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about what inclusion is and why it's important. You probably have many inclusive practices that you're already doing in your programs. And so we really hope that this episode will help you strengthen those practices as well as help your program grow even further.
So our learning objectives are to understand what inclusion is and why it's important for all children and families. I will learn about the laws that protect the rights of people with disabilities, and we'll highlight a few equity issues within special education. It is not exhaustive, but a quick highlight of issues we want you to be aware of. And then we'll also hear from families, educators, researchers, all about what inclusion means to them and how they do it.
So we'll also take a look at some books, right? Books are such a great way to highlight topics for children. And so this is really an important way to highlight the topic of inclusion and show children in a really positive light through children's stories. And then we'll end with a segment called It's All About You. And this is where we will talk about strategies to help you as a teacher stay calm and feel good in the busy, busy job that you have.
So for this season, for us, for the field, inclusion is an approach, a philosophy for supporting children with disabilities. You may think that supporting children with disabilities is children receiving special services or being pulled out of a classroom or one-on-one time with a special education teacher, and that is all true. Well, what we mean by inclusion is providing access, participation, and all the necessary supports to children with disabilities in their least restrictive and natural environments, which could mean your early learning environment.
That's right. To help us understand more about inclusion and why it's important, we've put together a video compilation to talk about what it is from multiple perspectives, including teachers, families, children, researchers, and people with disabilities themselves.
So inclusion to me means that kiddos with and without disabilities are together doing their entire day. So it is their choice time, their circle time, snacks, if they have nap time, any part of their day is fully integrated and together. Teachers, the special education teacher, the general education teacher are a team and they work together to provide the services that all the students need.
Many benefits. The ones that come to my mind right now are that first of all, we meet new people that are super friendly. They've been helping us with classes, equipment. We also find that it's to find out about other services that we probably didn't know they exist until being part of the community at school. And we also make friendships. My son has been really good with his friends in the last couple of weeks. I've been meeting their parents and they all feel that Alonso is a great kid, and we've just been building that friendship as well. So new benefits, services, friendships.
There is so much that each kid can offer that if you put them separate, because if you classify them because a diagnosis or whatever, I'm sure that some of those intentions might be good. It might be like, in this way we can work better for these specific kids. At the same time, I think you are teaching more separation. And we don't need that right now, especially right now. So seeing Sol in a classroom where she is equally treated, it makes me feel that that's what should be happening, and that's what she will need, and she will beneficiate too, because everybody learns from other people, so she has those models too, and other people have her model too. I think every child is bringing something for you to learn, and in a way, as a group, it becomes more rich.
Belonging. Inclusion is about being part of a group. Inclusion is about people making adaptations so that you can be the best that you can be. It's funny because sometimes I get frustrated when people think about inclusion as a placement strategy, and I'll talk to students or I'll talk to teachers and they'll talk about, these are inclusion kids and these aren't inclusion kids. And I'm very clear to say, no, we're all inclusion people, because, I heard someone talk one time and they said that the most inclusive place in the world is a dining room table or a family meal, because, we all have someone in our lives that, needs a little bit more support. And actually, as I say to my students, is that we all need a little bit more support, because we all have some things that we're good at, and we all have things that we need a little more help in. And that's what inclusion is about. Inclusion is about communities. It's about relationships. It's about really creating the kind of world in which we all want to live. It's where children, regardless of their ability or background, get to learn and play and grow together.
If we think about inclusion, it's those things that I am doing as I am doing it with Daniel, like going to school or offering her activities as I offer it to Daniel, taking her places as I took her brother, and is treating them the way how you would treat your kids naturally, without much thinking of the diagnosis. It's just doing things as normal and not focusing much in those aspects of not being able because a diagnosis was given. So in a way, that's inclusion, is like the action of integrating your kid into the regular things or activities that you would do for your typical kid. It's not that it's like sometimes it's like special needs, you are doing them a favor or like up for them or something, but not really. It's like, what about if they are here to teach us something about our own selves?
That's the biggest thing for inclusion. You just want to feel like you're welcome, like you're part of a family, like right. You're not getting picked last on the playground. Mm-hmm. And that's where I want my kids to be, Mm-hmm. Yeah, so.
Yeah, inclusion is important to us specifically because we've got children with special needs, right, with certain abilities, but they also have amazing strengths, to let them see that they can be that positive role model. And that all are included, all differences, all challenges, we have more the same.
Everybody brings something to the table. You might not know what it is just by looking at them, but that whole makes it so much more greater when you have everybody's skills and strengths, and you just never know. You don't take anybody for granted.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone who was represented in the video and shared their time and shared what inclusion means from their own perspectives. It was really invaluable.
That's an inclusive way to define what inclusion is, isn't it?
That's right, absolutely.
So we heard about believing the abilities of children with disabilities. They're really talking about seeing a child first.
Other people talked about environments where children are encouraged to do things and show what they know in different ways. And that we all need supports in different areas, right? We all need something from our environment. And it's also really important to provide opportunities for kids to make friends and for families to connect with each other and become friends with some of the parents in the program.
Yeah.
It's really important.
I loved hearing about how that inclusion extends outside the walls
Yes.
of a center and into a larger community, right? Like it's new community, it's new friendships for the kids and adults, and that really promotes membership and belonging, community, and family.
Absolutely.
Here is a definition of inclusion from the joint work of DEC and NIAC. The desired results of inclusive experiences for children with and without disabilities and their families include a sense of belonging and membership, as Eileen, Jocelyn, and Rahan mentioned, positive social relationships and friendships, like Yvonne said, and development and learning to reach their full potential, as Rocio and Katrina mentioned. The defining features of inclusion that can be used to identify high-quality early childhood programs and services are access, participation, and supports.
So we also interviewed people about their own experiences with inclusion and what they really wanted teachers to know about what inclusion feels like and what it is for children and families. So these interviews are full of strategies that you can use from those who really live these experiences. Let's watch.
The energy of teachers when they come, when your child comes and they honestly say, "Hey, how are you?" And I think that's it's great. See you later. So it's just that feeling. I don't know how to explain it, but the authenticity in teachers, and that's what I said. Like I can see and feel that pure love and pure intention of helping your child to develop, to be a child. And you know, like when I'm there, I don't feel different. I don't feel special. I don't think that even teachers mention special need, or I don't know if you guys, I don't know if you have some kind of training or something, but I never been referred for soul as a special need child. And I appreciate that. I was thinking about that the other day. Like, there is nothing about special needs that make me feel like special need parent. You know, in the attitude and the words, it's like no. So in a contrario, makes me feel here we are. This is how it is. You know, and it's positive. It's good. And I don't know. It's just I don't have an opposite opinion about it. I always feel welcome, and I know that my child feels welcome because the reactions or the classroom environment too. Classroom environment. And I know teachers work very hard and they can be very tired, and you know, working with kids, it's a lot of work. But that's very nice too, that, you know, it can be very hard, but you still can have a nice attitude, an honest attitude on top of everything that you have to do as a teacher.
Right.
If it's administrative or, you know, whatever else. And I can see how much work they have, but I can see and appreciate that too, that on top of that, they have the time to be kind.
We've been a teammate. We've been collaborating together. They do allow us to give our opinion and say maybe the things that are not going to work. There are many things that they didn't know Alonso was able to do, but I knew about them because he definitely showed this to me at home. So it's really helpful for them as well. I also, as a mom, I show my strategies, what works for me. They've been applying those strategies here at school, and I think it's working out.
We needed him to, you know, it helped us at home. I initially gave her the feedback that whatever they were doing was helpful because the transitions at home were easier. And so I guess what I would want, you know, teachers to see or to understand is that any any tools that you can give a parent, don't, expect them to support you, ask for their support, and then let us know how we can support each other, because the tools and resources that they gave supported our home setting. To that, they communicated daily with us about how he did every day, and would tell us, in a little notebook if he had a good day or a bad day, and how we could support him at home. Tremendous. I think, I would advise that in any classroom, because as parents, you're not there. You don't know how it goes. Yeah. You ask a 3-year-old how your day was, or, what'd you do? And he might remember, about a friend on meeting a friend or talking to a friend on the playground. But that gave us the little snapshot that we needed to take. And so we could write a note back to the teacher, or we could say he was very cranky, or he didn't sleep well last night. And she could support that inside the classroom. So they do great with feedback, and so that's something.
Communication is excellent everywhere.
Yeah, good question. I would say, look for the child's strengths, right? So every child has a strength, and one way that Sorensen did that was that they asked us to write down, and it wasn't like a couple sentences. It was like a 3 to 4 page evaluation that they asked for parents to share about their child. And it really, as parents, we had to get together on some things and really focus on the good. So, with children that have different abilities, every child has their pain points, and every child has something that makes them stand out. And if you look for an opportunity for that child to show their strength in the classroom, I think that would help them build their confidence, and ask the parent. I think Bryce is more than his behavior, and every child, every child has their strengths, and pull those out and find a way to allow the child to show those strengths, I think.
I'm Alex Igra. I'm 19. Have very high functioning autism, or Asperger's syndrome. I know that was taken out of the DSM, but I am honestly against that, because people do sometimes need a lot of support, and so I am a little bit more conservative on that ground. Putting me with neurotypical kids often, and sort of not kind of imposing limits on me as well, was something that was very important. And that's why I think an inclusive setting is such an important piece of what really should be every disability program's itinerary, and not just a caretaking place. Teachers also should learn more about IEPs. And before senior year, I didn't realize that they really don't get a lot of lessons on them. Simple website for parents and guardians of children who may need new IEPs that I've ever seen. It was for my senior project. It basically shows the basics of the IEP process and advice to parents and guardians, as well as other resources. And so far it's been seen in 30 states. What is an IEP, for example? How can my child be helped? How can my child be in the general education program and still have accommodations? Things like that, because parents and guardians obviously want the most good care for their child, but I think they should also want them to be in an inclusive setting and to be able to have dreams that kids with disabilities often aren't able to have.
One of the things that I always say about every child is that children with disabilities are children first. And we need to remember that when you meet a child, remember that, they're a child, they're not their disability. So don't think about them as Down syndrome or autism or LD or whatever that is. Think of them as a 4-year-old. And what would this 4-year-old be doing if they didn't have this other label? And where would they be going to school? And what would they be doing? And what would your expectation be? And really, would you be mad if they dumped over that toy if they were just a 4-year-old? Or are you just mad because they have autism and they dumped over that toy? And You know, so I think that it's important for us to remember that children with disabilities are children first. Membership and community is important, and that's what inclusion is about. It's about learning together and being part of a member of a community and belonging.
As a parent of a child with special needs, I think the biggest fear I've had in my life is that the world won't love my child as much as I do and as much as he deserves to be loved. And so there's probably all sorts of research and strategies and accommodations and all these things we can think about and do, but number one, just loving kids and just making sure that kids feel loved and respected and valued, and that the other children in the class are loving and respecting and valuing your child. And to me, that's what it's really all about.
Lots of great tips in that part. We heard about back and forth communication between parents and teachers, and there's many ways to do that. And parents feeling great when they were able to contribute to the learning environments because they're important.
Right.
They want that to be a part of what they experience too.
Absolutely, and I loved hearing from Alex, one of the young men that was on the video. I'm so thankful we were able to interview him and have him help us reflect on what his experience was like having autism and being in inclusive settings. And I'm just really excited for people to know about his resource that he created, the IEP Basics website. Is just such a great resource.
Yeah, please do check that out.
Yeah.
And I just loved hearing from Paige talking about that it all starts with love. She just wanted to make sure Eli was loved and supported in there.
Absolutely.
And as a teacher, what a great place to start with loving the children who come through your doors. And from that place, you can do your best including.
That's right. Okay, so now it is time for our From the Field segment. This is a segment that highlights teachers using great strategies that we really want you to know about. And in this one, Teacher Taylor highlights the ways in which she has taught preschoolers about what inclusion is, what it means. Let's watch this.
So at the start of the year, I met with my staff and I had kind of a motto that I wanted us to follow as a staff, and that is accepted, respected, and valued. And those are the three things that I wanted every single student in our classroom to feel every day for just being who they are. And so based off of that, we brainstormed as a group how we can teach those three pretty broad terms to 3 to 5-year-olds. And one of the ways that we've done it in our classroom, and I've seen it modeled many different ways in other classrooms as well, but teaching what it means to be included and how it feels to be included, and what it means to be excluded and how it feels. And so we started with a really simple sorting activity of pictures of students. And you're like, look at this face. How do you think this person feels? And we split it up into feeling sad or angry or frustrated and, happy, calm, excited. And then based off of that, we taught the new words of, I notice in this picture, everyone's together. Everyone's getting to play, and everyone has a choice of whether or not they want to play. I noticed that these friends are all feeling included. And then we defined excluded. And we went through this, and by teaching these they're upper level words, but by defining it for the students and by identifying it with feelings and actions that make people feel included or excluded, it really opened the door to them being able to self-initiate including others. So once we talked about, looking at someone who might be sitting on the periphery of the playfield, they're sitting by themselves, what can you do to make them feel included? And once we've talked about, how it makes them feel to be excluded, they were taking the self-initiative to go over and be like, hey, I see you're sitting on the grass. Do you want to come play tag with us? And they started initiating, inviting others to play. So we took it a next level up of saying, not only do we all play together and should everyone feel included and what we can do to make people be included, but talking about the benefits of it too. So why we should ask our friends to come play, because when they're over here, I'm learning that I didn't know that they knew how to sort all the sea animals, or I didn't know that they knew this or this. And I'm learning from them and I'm modeling that too. I'm saying, wow, this kid knows so many things about deep ocean animals that I had no idea. Let's add some to the water table and he can help teach us these. And so when you're starting to get students to play together and initiate playing together, then you have the opportunity to say, this person has this strength and this person has this strength, and we can utilize these so that we all become stronger together.
Thank you, Taylor. I love that. Accepted, respected, and valued.
Love it.
teaching those explicitly can help us all be stronger together. Inclusion is an active word, right?
Yes.
Like it requires action. By teaching kids explicitly what it means to be included, that's how we can take some action there.
That's right.
Hi, I'm Sadie, the kid correspondent for Circle Time magazine. Today, I'm going to be doing kid interviews with Gabby and Leighton. So I have questions to ask you. What do you think that it means to be included?
Happy?
It means happy. What about you? It's okay.
Sitting next to friends.
Sitting next to friends. Why do you think it's important to include everybody?
It makes them happy and it makes you feel good inside.
It gives people the courage to stand up to other people sometimes. Like if they want to find more friends, you could help them do that.
All right, so another really important area to talk about is the law, right? Disability law, including children with disabilities in educational programs is actually the law, right? So let's watch this quick overview of disability laws that impact young children.
Los educadores necesitan enfocarse en las fortalezas y necesidades de cada niño en su programa. Para los niños con discapacidades, esto a menudo significa expandir e individualizar las estrategias de enseñanza y aprendizaje. Existen leyes vigentes que están destinadas a ayudar, apoyar y proteger los derechos de las personas con discapacidad. Al saber cuáles son las leyes y qué implican, usted estará mejor preparado para servir y apoyar a los niños pequeños y a sus familias. A principios de la década de 1970, a millones de niños y niñas con discapacidades se les negó el acceso a las escuelas públicas o se les colocó en aulas segregadas. Esto violó los derechos de las personas con discapacidad y las sometió a condiciones que no les permitieron prosperar. Mientras que la Ley de Educación para Niños con Discapacidades de 1975 hizo mucho para desmantelar el sistema escolar segregado, la Ley de Educación de Individuos con Discapacidades, o IDEA por sus siglas en inglés, fue mucho más completa. IDEA, promulgada en 1990, otorgó a los niños con discapacidades una educación pública, gratuita y apropiada. Esto significa que los niños con discapacidades no solamente tienen derecho a recibir una educación, sino también a que ésta se adapte a sus necesidades. Les permitió el libre acceso a apoyos, terapias y equipos especializados. IDEA tiene muchas partes, pero las más importantes para la primera infancia son la parte B, sección 619, y la parte C. La parte B, sección 619, trata sobre la educación especial para niños preescolares y sus familias. En cambio, la parte C se refiere a los servicios de intervención temprana para niños de hasta 3 años de edad. La parte B, sección 619, incluye categorías para ayudar a definir la discapacidad. Un niño debe calificar dentro de estas categorías, así como mostrar una repercusión educativa para recibir servicios. La evaluación es realizada por un distrito escolar público que también ayudará a desarrollar un documento legal escrito que describa los servicios necesarios para apoyar al niño. Este documento se llama Programa de Educación Individualizado, o IEP por sus siglas en inglés. Se invita a las familias, a los maestros de educación especial de infancia temprana, a los terapeutas y al educador del niño a asistir a las reuniones del IEP y a colaborar en la mejor manera de satisfacer las necesidades del niño en el ambiente menos restrictivo. Parecido a la parte B, sección 619, la parte C de IDEA también especifica la creación de un plan de aprendizaje. Aquí se llama un plan de servicio familiar individualizado o IFSP por sus siglas en inglés. De acuerdo con la parte C, si un niño pequeño o un bebé menor de 3 años califica para un IFSP, entonces se debe desarrollar uno para ellos. Un IFSP incluye un esquema de los servicios de intervención temprana, resultados cuantificables para cada niño y familia y llamadas para que un coordinador de servicio supervise la implementación del plan. Además, los IFSPs necesitan que los servicios se presten en entornos naturales donde los niños con discapacidades ya pasan tiempo, incluyendo el hogar del niño, en un programa de cuidado infantil u otros entornos comunitarios. Además de IDEA, existen otras leyes relacionadas con la discapacidad que es importante que los educadores conozcan. La Ley de Estadounidenses con Discapacidades o ADA, por sus siglas en inglés, es una ley de derechos civiles que prohíbe la discriminación contra las personas con discapacidades. Incluye pautas para proporcionar elementos como espacios de estacionamiento accesibles, rampas en las aceras y cruces peatonales, de modo que las personas con discapacidades tengan acceso a espacios como restaurantes y paradas de autobús. Para los niños pequeños, esto significa asegurar que el equipo del patio de recreo sea seguro y accesible. La sección 504 de la Ley de Rehabilitación también protege los derechos de las personas con discapacidades al prohibir la discriminación por motivos de discapacidad en cualquier programa que reciba fondos federales. Como resultado, en algunos casos, cuando un niño no califica para los servicios bajo IDEA parte B, pueden tener protecciones bajo la sección 504 de la Ley de Rehabilitación. ¿Qué significa todo esto para usted? Lo que es importante que usted sepa es que las agencias de intervención temprana y los distritos escolares son legalmente responsables de proporcionar servicios a los niños con discapacidades. Eso los convierte en sus aliados cuando usted tiene un niño con discapacidades inscrito en su programa. Estar informado significa estar familiarizado con las leyes y regulaciones descritas anteriormente. También significa seguir trabajando con otros para encontrar la mejor manera de apoyar a los niños con discapacidades y sus familias en un entorno educativo. Producido por Cultivate Learning, un programa de la Universidad de Washington y Rooted in Rights.
That was a quick but helpful summary of disability laws to be aware of. And one key takeaway is that being included with full access and participation really is the expectation of what should be happening. So, however, in some cases, that isn't always happening. Let's listen to Rahan talk about some of his concerns.
I don't know, it's just a thought in my mind that I can see him going to a regular school and, you know, he acts out 3 days in a row and then they're putting him out of school because they don't really understand what's going on. So it's something that concerns you. I heard stories when I was at the seminar for the Washington State Fathers, how they will take kids and put them in, you know, locked closets for a certain time period because they're acting out. You know, they just don't understand. They don't know what to do with them. So until they can figure it out or either kick them out, they do whatever they can. And usually that's isolation. They just isolate the kids. They just keep them separate because they're fear of being harmed or the kids harming other kids. And it's scary. I mean, Sorensen isn't like that at all, so I don't have any fear of that. It's totally different. But in any other kind of situation where Bryce would have to go full-time in another school or even part-time at Sorensen and part-time in another school to cover a full day, it's just scary because everyone looks at it from a standpoint of behavioral is just you're angry and you can't control it. And there's something that you either need to be out of school or in a home environment or in a very special needs situation, which is really not helping anything. It's, they need to be in an inclusion program where everybody fits in at Bryce's school. It's not like anybody's different. Anybody is at a point where they need to be isolated or, intimidated or hurt because of the way they're acting out.
Okay, so it's understandable to continue to be concerned about things regarding children with disabilities, right? And how they're treated. So, for example, we know that children of color, and especially African American boys, are over-identified and needing special education services. But just like Rahan said, when you're in an inclusive setting where everyone is accepted and respected and valued, as teacher, yep, that's right, as Teacher Taylor says, teachers then can just continue to create these wonderful inclusive environments.
There's some great guiding reflection questions that we really like to put forth by Mariana Soto Manning and her colleagues in their article about equity and inclusive teaching. There are a couple we want to add to our conversation here. So one good reflection question is, do I realize that when I give everyone the same thing, I'm likely to foster inequity? Let's think about that for a moment. To help us reflect on that a bit more, we've got this great clip from teacher Katrina as an example.
When we do some other things like alternative seating, so some of our students will use a chair or other methods to sit at circle time, we will say that student, he needs that at circle time, so you don't get it, but you can use that chair any other time. So that way the students still have the opportunity to explore, and it normalizes that piece of equipment, yet it still gives the student exactly what they need. Sometimes teachers will do, well, it's not fair that they have a chair. Well, fair is not everybody getting the same thing. Fair is everybody getting what they need. And so it's our job as teachers to figure out what our students need and make sure they get that.
Okay, wow, Katrina nailed it.
Yes, she did.
That's exactly what we're talking about. Equity does not mean everyone getting the same thing. It means everyone getting what they need.
Yes.
So this is really the difference between equity and equality. That's an important concept when doing inclusion work because our goal is to help children succeed no matter what their needs are. So in some cases, that may mean that some children may get more of something.
Yeah.
They may receive an aid in the classroom. Maybe they have special equipment, different toys, different materials at different times of the day. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And that is actually what is fair and what is just.
Another question they put forth asks if every child has the opportunity to succeed to their fullest capability. That may mean individualizing your instruction to specific children or designing teaching and learning from multiple entry points.
Right.
I love this example we're about to show you from Paige and Sean. They tell a story about how Eli signed in a way that worked best for him.
Yeah.
Let's watch that example.
I think just having the sort of the freedom and flexibility to think outside the box, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. One thing one of my child's teachers did for him was all the kids had a classroom sign-in. They'd come in and sign their name, which I think is pretty common in classrooms. And some kids had their names in all capital letters, and some kids had their name with a capital and lowercase, and some kids had all sorts of different, accommodations. And for Eli, who was really working still on his grasp and fine motor skills, his sign-in was a plus and a circle and a line. Nice. And so he came in proudly and had his picture on the side, and he worked on the thing that was right for him to work on. But he was a part of the community. The teachers believed that he could acquire a new skill, and then those change as you grow. Yeah. And so thinking about just making sure that everybody has access to what you're doing, and it can look totally different.
I love that example, right? Equity is allowing children to show you what they know in different ways.
That's right. I love that. So disability identity is important to consider as well. So we really love this quote from Lalvani and Bacon from their article about anti-ableism, because it reminds us of how disability is often an area that is marginalized as an identity category. It's similar to how color blindness is done. If I don't see color, I see everyone equally. But when you don't see an aspect of a person, you're not seeing them as a whole person.
Yeah. I mean, fostering pride in disability is important to a child's self-esteem. You could use a social story or puppets to introduce the idea that there are different ways people talk about themselves and their abilities. Books are another great way to do this, which we'll hear about in a little bit.
That's right.
All too often, social justice-based multicultural curricula in early childhood and early childhood special education generally ignore disability as an identity category, and the implicit messages that children receive through such silences reinforce deficit perspectives of disability. Thus, honoring disability identity within lessons that aim to instill pride in one's families and culture is vitally important in an inclusive classroom.
So there are many ways that inclusion is an equity move, right? Just to summarize what we talked about quickly, teachers can design teaching and learning from multiple entry points. We want to teach children pride around their disability identity. And giving everyone the same thing isn't equity, right? But getting everyone what they need is.
So one of our favorite things to do on Circle Time Magazine is to talk about books. Books are an integral part of every early childhood teacher's day, and today we have a few that Gail will come share with us. Hi, Gail.
Hi, Gail.
Hello.
We love having you here.
Well, thanks for having me.
So what did you bring?
We know that teachers can, through books and through discussions, they can really help promote a positive awareness of children with disabilities, of individuals with disabilities, and they can help socialize children into an inclusive spirit through books and discussions. But picking books that feature children with disabilities and people with disabilities can sometimes be challenging. So one thing is that there are just too few books. We need more books written that feature children and people with disabilities. But we also want to be careful about the types of books that we select. And so I thought I would start with a stack that I have here, and we can just talk about what we like about them. So, so this is one that we found called We Can Do It by Laura Dwight. So let me tell you a little bit about what I love about this book. So it provides descriptions, kind of short biographical texts about 5 children who are children with visible disabilities. And so things that I love about it are that it starts telling the story just about the child. It introduces the child first, and that's one thing that we always like to see in books is that it's really about the child or the person, not about the disability, right? So my name is Gina. I'm 5 years old. I have spina bifida, and I can do lots of things. So then it goes on with these beautiful, vivid photographs and pictures of real children doing real things, and so many action shots. Look at all these things that Gina can do. And so many of the things are things that children do all the time, right? So, so some of the things I like about this, it's biographical, it's real pictures. It starts with children first, right? So it talks about the child first, and it shows the child with a disability in action. So it's not just a child that is receiving help at all. So it's really about I'm active, I can do things that all children like to do. So a couple ways to use that book.
Good, okay.
So this one is another one of my favorites, Friends at School by Rochelle Bennett, and she has a whole series of these. So there's Friends at the Park and a few others that you can find, and it's great. It's just pictures, photographs, vivid photographs of real children, some children with disabilities, some children without disabilities, and they're just talking about things that they do during their day at school. It's really fun. It actually would be a great book to help orient a child who's going to school for the first time, just so that they can see all the fun and different things they do. I love it. It includes a class pet in there. So children are engaged in action, doing things that most children love to do and engage with. And the other thing that I love about this is the author herself. She's been a teacher and an advocate for decades. And that's another way to look at books, is to really look at the background of the author and their experiences and what they're bringing to it. So,
Absolutely.
That's another great one.
I love that you
like
mentioned
this
the
one
author.
too.
Yeah, love this series, and I love that you mentioned talking about the author.
Yeah.
I think that makes it such a richer kind of, something you'll show with kids.
Great. And so again, few others by her. So this one, I love this one. I've just been made aware of this one. The Black Book of Colors by Menina Cotton and Rosanna Faria. And isn't it
I'm
unique
so
and
intrigued.
interesting? So, I think that if we have vision, we experience the world in a different way than people who have any visual impairments or who are blind. And this is a great book to show children kind of different experiences. So what's interesting about it is that it's all black, and there's actually Braille.
Yeah.
So the text is in white, and there's actually Braille. There's a Braille alphabet in the back, so you can actually learn to read some of the Braille lettering. But these, and I don't know if we will pick up on this with the camera or not, but you can feel the photographs or feel the pictures that are in here, right?
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
So I think it's the neat one for a lot of reasons. I think it helps us understand different experiences. It helps us understand how how people who are blind read as well, and how they use the Braille to do that. And it's just a really neat, exciting book. That
Lots
you can
of
bring
jumping off of discussions from this book.
Absolutely.
About visual impairments, about being blind, about Braille, about why is there no color in the book? I mean, I can just see lots of great, rich discussions.
Absolutely.
I love that.
And so you can bring in some current terminology use. You can talk about experiences. So love this one. Real unique and neat one there. This is one that I just was just kind of given to me, and I really love it. So it does a lot of great things. It's called Hello, Goodbye Dog by Maria Jean Ferrari. My apologies if I have not pronounced that right. But it's a great book. It has this character and her dog that she loves, who becomes a therapy dog, who gets to go to all kinds of places with her, goes into school, goes into some after-school programs. And it's really neat, again, because it shows the character, Zara, using a wheelchair, and it shows her engaged in all of the same things that children are engaged in. So we love that we would depict children with disabilities as active participants, not passively receiving help, talking about the child first and everything about the child, right? So, so anyways, it's a really neat, fun book, and I think a lot of children will love the dog in there, and helps them understand about therapy dogs and helping dogs. So just another great,
which are really, children are gonna and families are gonna encounter more and more therapy dogs as this becomes sort of out in the community. And I love that there's a book about that, and doesn't really focus on her and her wheelchair, but the dog and how the dog is so special to her. I love that.
That's right.
Good.
Again, we love just emphasizing that children first, right? The person first is great. And like you said before, lots of jumping off points for discussion and things. And I was thinking too that in a lot of the books that we featured, we really were showing books that depicted children with visible disabilities, again, as a point of departure for discussion. But we really can think about books that are generative of inclusive spirit.
Okay, right. I'm thinking of series right away, like that people may have a lot of in their classroom. The whole Peggy and Gerald series is really talking about inclusion and the relationship between these two friends who are quite different, but they like a lot of the same things. There's not a talk about disability per se, but that whole kind of inclusion. One is called something like Can I Play Too? And it has a snake friend come, and they're worried maybe Snake can't play ball because Snake doesn't have hands, but they learn, of course, that Snake can play ball just as well as they can. And so that sort of play, inclusion and play that, we can all play differently. And so those could be in many of your classrooms already. So thinking about what you have already that could be jumping off points for discussions.
Right, the way to bring the inclusion out of books.
Right.
Inclusion among it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think it's so helpful to be able to think about putting children first, right? A child with special needs, that you're prominent in the book, that you're shown in a positive light. Like there's nothing, no negative stereotypes associated with it or tokenism or anything like that. All of these books really represent children well, and I hope that helps people select books that will do the same thing and help you talk about these topics maybe a little bit more easily.
And I think there are available checklists. I know that you've become familiar with some checklists that you can use to just kind of do a good scan of a book. If you're not sure, it's always nice to kind of go through and say, does it meet this, or is there some caution here about, because the last thing we want to do is reinforce any negative stereotypes or even, start to grow those. We really want to make sure that we're thinking in positive and inclusive spirit. So,
That's right. Thank you, Gail.
Thank you for having me. And thanks for some of these book suggestions. I love them.
We're going to check those out. All right, next we have Gail still with us when we head into our segment called It's All About You, right? This is where she shares some great tips for teachers for how you can take care of yourself.
Well, I thought today I would just share 3 quick little strategies when you are in the classroom and you're feeling really stressed. So things have happened. Yes, and it's such a buzzing kind of hubbub of action, and something happens and you just get that stressed out moment, right? And so we know that as teachers that we'll do our best teaching when we can feel calm and kind of well ourselves, right? So here's a quick way to kind of get back into that space, right? So the one thing is we talk about finding your concrete shoes. So you're stressed out, you're feeling kind of full of anxiety, worry, and the first thing to do is just ground your feet, right? And so there actually is this kind of pressure point between kind of underneath the second and third toe, just a little bit down, like kind of the ball of your foot, right? So you just kind of push yourself into your into the floor a little bit. So we call it find your concrete shoes. Then the next thing you want to do is take some of those deep breaths. It just is always a great way to bring the heart rate down and to concentrate on just your breathing. So one way to do that folks might be familiar with is mountain breathing. And so the idea is to just kind of think about going up the mountain, down the mountain, right? So up the mountain is inhale and down the mountain, exhale. So that can get you some 5 deep breaths in there, right? So you can just kind of concrete shoes, taking those deep breaths. And then the next thing is to what we call is kind of like move your telescope or kind of widen your lens. You can think about it in different ways. And that is that when we get stressed, we kind of have a negativity bias and we start just concentrating on the worst thing, and we can't really see anything good in that moment or in that day. And so this is just a reminder that there are some good things. You just have to move your telescope to kind of find them, right? So there might be a meltdown happening right now. There might be a whole classroom of visitors watching you in this very moment that you're feeling kind of stressed and anxious about that. But hey, you're still here, right? That's something good. You still have a job that you enjoy on most days, right? That's something that's there, and the moment's going to get better, right? So you can just figure out what little things in that moment can be positive that can just bring down some of the negativity. So concrete shoes, mountain breathing, move your telescope.
Excellent. Love it. Good.
I feel better already.
All right.
Thank you, Gail.
Yes, thank you.
See you next time.
Yes.
So we've come to the end of our time. We created this episode about inclusion because we wanted to lay a foundation of inclusion before we get into how you can make it happen in the classroom, which we'll do for the rest of these episodes. We did that today through listening to multiple perspectives that inspire us to do our best work.
That's right. Thank you so much for joining us for our Circle Time today.
I think that child care providers have such an important role in helping families have a positive first experience because they can really create a inclusive environment for their families that say, my child has friends, my child is part of a community, my child is going to succeed, my child can learn, is learning, loves school.